Okay. All right, what's up, gang? Welcome to another superbly fascinating episode of Silicon Zombies. That's right, you're listening to Brainwaves on Pirate Cat Radio. That's 92.9 FM in Los Gatos and 101.9 FM KMRT in Santa Cruz. We bring you all the best brains, and we have fun while we're doing it. So pretty excited to dive right into it. Before we get started, want to give a shout out to the Frosty Frequency fundraiser. So if you'd like to support local community radio, we'll take your money. Go to donate.kpcr.org, and thank you for supporting community radio. Well, without any further ado, let's jump right in this. I got two dear friends, rapscallions, businessmen, and fractional experts. So Matt Lopez, General Counsel, and Jeff Goldsmith, you're in the space too, the king of copy, in fact. So maybe we'll go ahead and get started. Guys, maybe share a little bit about yourselves. Matt, let's begin with you.
So I'm a lawyer, obviously.
But unconventional kind of lawyer.
Very different. I take a very VC approach to my law practice. I represent about 40 different startups running their legal departments. And we end up taking an equity stake in most of our clients and deferring a lot of that cost until their Series A. At this point in my career, I kind of saw this huge need in the startup market where a lot of startups didn't have good legal at an early stage and they really needed it. And I was able to figure out a way to be able to offer that to them without, breaking the bank. And it's been very successful 5 years of working with really cool startups and being able to, work with great people and companies and ideas to be able to grow them. And, I enjoyed it.
And we're in the middle of a revolution in artificial intelligence and transparency. So in the interest of transparency, Matt's also our general counsel for Silicon Zombies. And then, of course, Jeff Goldsmith, celebrated author and the king of copy. I mean, I like calling you that just because you're so witty and just a wonderful human.
Viva la revolution.
Tell us, where does the revolution begin and where are we going next?
Well, I think when I took a class from the guy who wrote the line, Visine gets the red out. And eventually I got a job in Tokyo as an advertising copywriter. Flash forward many years of copywriting and advertising experience, I ended up head of marketing at startups. That lasted for about 15 years. And now I'm spreading the love across multiple companies. And that's what I do.
So, wow, okay. So Tokyo sounds like a totally different beast. I'm sure you've got, when I say Tokyo, what comes to mind? And speak right into the mic if you could.
When you say Tokyo, what comes to mind are trains and subways that run on time.
And probably clean.
Yeah, they're clean. And the Japanese language and a lot of nuance and great lunches and late night drinking. It was a pretty fun time.
Sounds like a great place.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
When are we headed? When are we headed there?
I want to go to somewhere in Hokkaido.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Speaking my language.
That's right.
Let's do a broadcast from Tokyo.
We can. Why not?
On top of a mountain? I think that sounds like fun.
In a hot spring.
Ooh.
Matt, you don't like the mountains, though, do you?
No, I don't. I actually got away from, the big cities. I was in Huntington Beach. I've been in the Bay Area. And I actually just bought a place up near Tahoe in Auburn. I got 5 acres and
you're in Auburn. Okay.
Yeah. It's Grass Valley, but most people know Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I got 5 acres out there. I've got a pond. It's one of those beautiful places, and I got gig fiber internet. So I've got everything a fractional executive would ever need.
I love
And a couple new dogs.
They're wonderful puppies.
Yeah. How cool.
Yeah.
How cool. So maybe I think it's always helpful to lay the foundation. It helps us understand who are the guests, where are they coming from, and what made them the humans that they are. So let's Tell us a little bit about how to make yourself famous. So, Jeff, please.
So, there's a lot of tried and true methods of doing that, so that book is a series of case studies of how to become famous, and one of them is as simple as hiring a PR person. However, you have to step up to the plate and make bold claims and do bold things to get press. You have to be okay with sending out a press release that you're going to be doing a stunt at such and such a time, such and such a day, or create a product with a unique and crazy feature like a vase in the new old Volkswagen Bugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of which, the as far as like bold messages and bold claims, my mentor's wife was the CFO for Branson for like a decade, and she said that Richard wanted to ride an elephant through Times Square, and all the attorneys are like, "Oh no, absolutely not." And he's like, "You know what? I'm doing it. This is my," and it ended up like getting front page news, and
right.
It was like a really cool thing. Is this the kind of boldness that you're talking about?
There's precedent to that, to Barnum and Bailey walking elephants across the Brooklyn Bridge in the 19th century, and he got tons of press.
Wow.
That's where he coined the phrase, all press is good press.
As long as they get your name right.
Barnum and Bailey. Really?
Yeah.
That is a really cool fact.
He got negative press, but he didn't care.
That's, I don't know how many years later I'm impressed by this. This sounds really cool.
Exactly.
I wish there was a little video of this. Like, I feel like that would go viral real quick.
So, I mean, you guys are both kicking serious butt in the respective fractional spaces, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief General Counsel. And I'm curious why you think you've been able to succeed and where is the market going? And then maybe we can dive into the agentic frameworks and that future of work. But it certainly feels like the future of work is becoming a little bit more entrepreneurial, is it not?
I definitely agree. I think El Revolution, like fractional, like companies kicked employees kind of the curb when it came to benefits and all these different things. And the reality is, employees are taking back the narrative, I feel like, with the fractional aspect of this and being able to now take back control of their time and their value and being able to dictate their terms to employers with this.
But let me push back on that. Jamie Dimon recently went on a tirade. You guys probably both heard about this, where he's like, this is how I'm running my business or our business. And, you got to get back to the office. That doesn't, Jensen from NVIDIA, he doesn't care. He said, just get your work done and work wherever you need.
Yeah.
It seems to be some bifurcating. Where do you fall in this piece of the pie?
Well, I have been working from home for a very long time, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think that's a personal choice. People who want to work from home, they might have to give up their jobs and figure out another way to skin the cat.
Yeah, and you certainly have a really beautiful, eclectic, open. Let's talk about Sylvia real briefly. Your muse. Can I say that?
Sure.
So, can you try to paint the picture for the audience of what your home is like? Because it's difficult to capture in words.
Well, it's funny you say paint the picture. So I live with someone named Sylvia Piloto, and she's a well-known Bay Area artist. And we live in a warehouse that she renovated, and it's a fantastic space. She was recently in San Francisco. She gets a lot of press because she's not only brilliant, but she's also beautiful, and her art's super interesting. Yeah. And I'm gonna, at the end of this year, the plan is to go to back to Brazil, where she's from, and do a show and get some cred there, and then she'll come back to America. We just had the head curator from the DeYoung come by our house today to talk to Sylvia about future artistic strategies. Wow. So she's just an interesting character.
She is stunning, and just a pistol from I've got a Latino wife, so I can relate.
True, you do.
How would you characterize her work, just real quickly?
Abstract,
Yeah.
bold, gestural.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then maybe speaking of bold, how do you tie some of those underlying philosophies or concepts into good marketing?
Well, you've got to be clear. You've got to be bold. You've got to offer someone a benefit. Otherwise, they're not going to care. They're not going to pay attention at all.
Yeah. So cut to the chase is maybe what you're saying there.
Oh, yeah. But my first boss in Japan, he would shout at me every time I'd bring some copywriting over to him. What is the benefit? His name was Shiga-san, and he'd scare me to death every time I'd go over and do that. There we go. Does that sound better, everybody?
Better, much.
So what is the benefit?
I agree. Like when you're talking about how do you communicate? Benefit is the language that everyone's speaking.
Yeah.
And I agree that bold is how you can communicate that sometimes. For me, I'm the opposite. I am so under the radar because of my model. I don't want people to know about how I do what I do, because I don't want a bunch of people knocking on my door. I want my network actually filters everyone that comes to me. You have to come through a trusted source in order to work with me.
Was it always that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think we've built a very great network, and Nick's been a huge proponent of being able to drive traffic through Silicon Zombies and all of the wonderful things that he's done. And everyone's got a different strategy. Mm-hmm. And it's that niche of how do you communicate, how do you target and find your key customer is the key. And for me, it's by being quiet. I don't have a website. I don't have any marketing. And to me, I think that's the bold statement of, I'm so good at what I do, I don't have to do any of that stuff to get your business.
It's anti-marketing.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. When I think of the coolest celebrities, because that's a form of marketing as well. I think of Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood always kind of had this air of like, I don't really want to be here. You know, which I think kind of flipped that entire market. Like if you look at when Clint was a young man, his contemporary was Burt Reynolds, who, at one point in time, they were kind of on the same trajectory, and then Burt kind of fell off, and Clint, of course, became a superstar. Maybe that's because he kind of shied away from the camera a little bit. Do you think that can work in certain elements of art? Because you're certainly kind of a unique use case in here.
But that's also the persona that he gave off. Those were the roles that he was taking. Like he was this kind of quiet, leading role, like very macho kind of man. That's not the talkative type. It's not the press type. And so I think he leaned into the roles that he was doing, and I think that also fit probably his personality well. And so versus someone that is more bold and outgoing, like the roles that they're taking and who they are in personality wise probably lends itself to that. Like
I want to sing your praises for a moment, Matt. I mean, Matt, you are marketing yourself well. You're so clear about the benefit. It's like, I don't, I lower my billing until we get to Series A. I take an equity stake and I set up your marketing, your legal department. That's so there's a clear benefit to that, to all 40 startups that are working with you. That's a testament that it works.
Yeah, and it's very clear when I'm talking to someone whether they get the value prop or they don't. And if they don't, I don't pursue it, because if you don't see the value in what I'm offering, you're not my target. You're not my target business.
I agree with that. If someone doesn't, startups often don't get traction because they have poor marketing. And when I explain what I do, if they don't get it, I'm not going to be able to convince them.
Yeah, like I can't tell someone like you need legal to make sure your business grows properly. Like if you don't understand the value in like a really solid MSA, employment contracts, partnership deals, all of like good corporate governance, I'm not going to ever convince you of it until something bad happens. And then guess what? Most of the time they come back to knocking on my door when it's too late.
Tell us a story. Tell us a story about that of legal debt in the abstract.
I've definitely had when I first started this practice, I started going after Series A companies, And after landing a couple of those companies, I really like the problems that I had to clean up were so massive. Like because you just took $10 million plus. Your investors want results. Because you promised them, I have a process for being able to make this money.
Right.
Or with this, I can get product market fit. And the problem is when you don't have those systems in place, that foundation, stuff goes really bad really quick when you try to scale that up. Yeah. And so a lot of the times I had to build a foundation and scale at the same time. And that those two things don't go together. And so I actually went downstream to seed stage companies because it was better to build those foundations than to do it later on. And I really shy away from later stage companies at this point because I took on those clients at the beginning and they had such messes.
Yeah, and they always want to make sure that it's never strategic to lose your investors' money.
No, I completely agree with this. I also work for early stage companies because it's easier to build the foundation properly. So you're ABC testing all of your landing pages and your LinkedIn messages and your Google remarketing, whatever, and figuring out what works and not spending too much money in the beginning until you understand how the funnel's going to flow.
Exactly. You have to understand who you're targeting and what message is going to resonate.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to dump a bunch of money into something that is a fool's errand.
Yep. Yeah.
I've got a curveball. I'm gonna throw either one of you can take a swing. What are some of the challenges that folks are having doing this new fractional work, which seems to be exploding?
It's the back end. I'm going to be honest, I'm 3 months behind on my billing.
Wow.
I have not billed some of my clients in 3 months. I literally, on the way here, had one of my clients be like, when can we get the bill so we can pay you?
Interesting.
So there's not many places where people are wanting to give you money.
Jeff, I want to hear your take, but just real quickly, I listened to the Collison brothers who co-founded Stripe, the Irish brothers. And they were recently on the All In podcast. Stripe just released this thing called Stripe Billing, which puts a lot of that on auto, kind of streamlines those processes. I'll send this to you, but it just came out. It's a new product, pretty fascinating. What are your thoughts on some of the challenges, Jeff?
Every proposal is unique.
Yeah.
Right. Every company's situation is different. And so sometimes you have to fix a website and make that go. Sometimes it's PR. Sometimes it's they're just not reaching out to enough of their ICP. So proposals are complicated getting that right.
But that's where I disagree. You just listed out all of the buckets of potential issues.
Right.
And that's where, as a fractional, I think the real trick is being able to figure out your business and figure out, okay, here are the problems that my clients are having, and being able to systematize as much of that proposal, or hey, if I'm having a problem in this area, there's only 3 or 4 options. Build out those 3 or 4 options into a proposal. So you're just rinsing and repeating that.
I'm getting there. I'm how many years in? Last year, I became a fractional at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2024. I essentially had one client for the whole year. I went to Brazil 3 times and learned Portuguese too. But
so there was a little vacation syndrome in there.
I kind of took it easy last year. I also went to Milan for 6 weeks and learned Italian.
Yeah, must be rough.
Yeah, I had a terrible year. And so you're absolutely right. There are certain buckets in marketing, and what I need to do is come up with a template proposal. Here's the 8 buckets, and I'm going to attack all of these for you at the same time.
Yeah, or delete the ones that don't apply to that point. Yeah. And at least for me, the reason why I've been very successful with my business is I've spent probably close to almost $1 million building out processes and systems. So when you're talking about legal for a startup, 70-80% of that is the same stuff.
Yeah.
It just needs to be customized to that particular need.
It duly noted, and it's interesting that over the past couple months, I've been doing a lot of proposals, and I'm coming to that same.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, most fractionals, you have to realize that you are a product.
Yeah.
And the quicker you can productize your systems and everything, the better you're able to increase your revenue and increase your ability to work with more clients, because you're not spending time on the minutia. You're spending time on that critical high level function that only you really can like dial it in.
This seems like a perfect segue into automated workflows or like agentic systems, which I know is all the rage, and a lot of people are defining them differently. I don't think that the definition is so important because like automated workflows versus what actually is an agent. Is it a foundational model? Is it something that sits on top of it with a unique data set? I think people are actually more curious about when is my workload going to meaningfully change because I can just type it in and it's going to go solve it on its own. I think folks want to see the utility as opposed to like the description. Are you guys using AI in your outreach, in your research? If so, what does that look like?
Definitely my research, any kind of problem that a company's having, or when I'm looking at a market, like what are the top 5 people in this market, or what, any question you have.
This kind of goes back to not having to recreate the wheel, just like see what's working, right?
Yeah, I know when Matt was speaking, I was like, you could definitely create AI around all of those buckets.
Yeah, and I don't use AI for anything, because the reality is, for me, everything I do has to be done. It's very precision.
Sure.
And
same as like medicine or for accounting, like legal. There's no
you can't get
margin
it
for
wrong at the end of the day. And the reality is, I've automated, not necessarily automated, I've created the templates for everything. So that way it's more plug and play. And the only thing that I would at this point do is really create, like, I've created questionnaires. So I give those to my clients and they fill in all that information. The only thing that I would do differently at some point is be able to plug those values into the contracts. So that way it kind of automates that fill in, and then have one of my paralegals double check it versus my paralegal taking that information, plugging it in. Like that, like at the end of the day, that's probably the only thing that I would want to automate out of my business. But at this stage, the cost benefit of that, like I don't have a development team that I want to spend a bunch of money to do that. Like, it's cheaper at this point for me to just have a human do it and do it right the first time.
Maybe the consumer space is kind of interesting for a lot of agentic frameworks, but
I think for a lot of industries, like I talk to startups all the time, and the amount of AI that's coming out for especially fractional PR, fractional, like anything. Like I was actually just talking to a really cool startup the other day that was taking AI and it was kind of a listening device. It listened to how people are talking about a product or a service or something, and it was condensing all of that into messaging on like how is your product being received, and how are your competitors' products being received. It was a phenomenal product.
Sentiment analysis, maybe.
Yeah, like,
that's crazy.
And super cool company. Like I wish them the best. Like I think they're really onto something.
Yeah. One of my clients this is a narrower use case of AI, but they put all of their case studies and all of their documents into an instance of ChatGPT. And now we can use ChatGPT, that instance, as a sales tool. You can talk to it rather than a salesperson about everything that this client of mine does for large enterprises, and what all the benefits are and how to use the product. So it's quite interesting. So they've used ChatGPT to basically be, a sales engineer or an ISR for the company.
I think there's a lot of really cool uses for AI in this day and age, and I think like I'm really excited for this next stage of what's going to come over in the next couple of years, because right now we're in just like everyone thinks we're in the heyday of this. I disagree.
Me too.
We're in the next in 3 to 5 years from now, that's going to be I think that early golden age of AI and uses of it.
3 to 5 years, I feel like we're going to make probably remarkable strides before then.
Well, you use that software package Opus, right, to cut up videos into small.
We use a competitor called Munch. Also, we're not getting paid by these guys, but it's getmunch.com, M-U-N-C-H. We're not opposed to getting paid if the Munch team is listening. But it's pretty cool. It's like, you feed it a long form, like a YouTube, for example, or some kind of, and it takes 30 minutes and it'll slice and dice all the most engageable pieces and put it on your socials.
So my question to you is, when did ChatGPT come out?
Let's see. The white paper came out, I think, in 2018, because that was 10 years after the Bitcoin white paper that came out in 2008.
But I think ChatGPT like hit everyone's vernacular, like a year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. They've got 400 million weekly active users, which is insane.
I'm one of them.
Think about
it's 5% of the globe, right?
Yeah, but think about the difference between 2 years ago ChatGPT versus today. Like, it's improved, but it's the same product, in my opinion. It's now created multiple different versions of how it interacts with stuff and how, like, the different processes and stuff.
Some are reasoning, some are not.
Exactly, and how you interact, like pictures versus text, all these different models.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been that, that next leap yet.
Yeah, it's happening in other areas though. Like, there's scripts that will detect all of the individual users that come to your website, right?
Yeah.
But then you can also put in agentic features so that you're only selecting people that work at companies with more than 5,000 employees, and then connecting with them on LinkedIn, or what have you. So there's a lot of workflows that are being built.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, right now, the ChatGPT revolution, at least in my mind, has spawned a lot of really cool side products and ideas. But I'm looking forward to the next level. Like, we haven't seen the next really cool iterate, like when ChatGPT hit the market, it was revolutionary. It was a completely different generation of AI than like the previous hype cycles we've had of investing and fundraising and all that.
Students and plagiarizers everywhere rejoiced.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Viva la revolution.
So what's that next chapter going to look like?
I honestly don't know. And for me, I'm, at least with my business and who I'm backing with my legal services, isn't necessarily AI companies. It's the AI service companies. I love those type of companies that are helping I want to sell shovels.
Yeah, right.
NVIDIA is selling shovels to all these AI companies. Those are the companies you want, at least in my opinion, I want to be attached to. Sure. I want to be working with.
Well, I'm actually working with 3 AI companies. Well, I'm still working with 2 of them. One I haven't. One I was describing earlier when we were talking before the show. They've married computer vision with workers' compensation insurance, and they lower rates by keeping people safe. Another one.
Well, do you want to give a shout out to their website so we can tag them?
Compscience.com.
Compscience.com.
Yeah, gambate kudasai, as they say in Japanese, guys. Wow. Which means do your best, please. And then Chooch, which has come around, and CHOOCH. They've come around. They're now doing healthcare inventory management by simply putting cameras on shelves in healthcare storerooms and using computer vision to track inventory, reducing oversupply and stock out in healthcare inventory rooms, which results in rush orders and it drives costs up.
So just for quickly, my friend Tobias, he runs a platform with over 10,000 hospitals across rural Africa.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that could be a good connection, but
introduce me to him.
For sure.
And then the third company I'm just starting with, it's not even on my LinkedIn yet. It's called mammoth.io. And it's basically data harmonization. And they use AI to help people basically mash data together so it works. And Starbucks is one of their clients.
Wow.
They're epic. And so I'm just starting with them. Yeah.
So when I think about the biggest challenges that companies have around adopting AI, or I guess these new agentic frameworks, it's the quality of their data, like is it clean, is it ready to be used, cybersecurity, and then adoption. Because at the end of the day, these are still tools to solve problems. Your employees need to be on board.
I think the major issue is the first one that you talked about.
Okay.
Like most companies have not structured their data and they don't have it tagged, and it's just a bunch of loose data, and being able, like, AI doesn't know how to process all of that.
Mammoth.
Yeah,
Mammoth does.
There you go.
Was that by design? You know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Silicon Zombies Brainwaves on Pirate Cat Radio. That's 92.9 KPCR in Los Gatos and KMRT 101.9 FM in San Francisco. And if you're just tuning in with us, we've got Matt Lopez and Jeffrey Goldsmith, and we're talking a little bit about the future of work. The future of work. So what are some of the challenges that I guess we covered this briefly, but this next phase, this next chapter of growth, it feels like more and more folks are becoming more entrepreneurial and don't want to put their livelihood in the hands of another company. I mean, Facebook just laid off thousands of people in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's definitely going to be a segment. Like, I don't think we're going to get rid of the traditional 40-hour work week for most people. Like, I think there's a good chunk of the population that really likes having a stable job that is risk-free. They don't have to go hunting for business. And like, I know plenty of people that love being in the office, love that camaraderie and being able to socialize. And there's other people like us that I like being in my house.
Gunslingers.
Yeah.
We'll call them.
I like being able to kill what I eat.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I like to be where I live. Like last year, I was 100% remote and I was traveling the world.
Yeah.
Like I spent 3 months in Denver to do ski season. I did Thailand. I was in New York.
Yeah.
I was all over the world having a grand old time. And guess what? None of my clients cared.
I wasn't jealous, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that Matt has star quality. Speaking of star quality, tell us a little bit about what this means to you personally, Jeff.
What does that mean? Well, I've been
star quality.
Star quality.
Yeah.
So, star quality is another word for charisma. You know, Madonna has it. People have it one way or another. You have it, but Nick?
Just a very tiny amount.
Yeah, well, más o menos. You know, it doesn't matter. People can feel it. People can feel each other's energy, and certain people are more attractive because of their positivity and maybe their edginess or their scariness, but there's some factor that they have in their personality and their energy that makes other people want to know them. And it's a thing.
I wonder if we could ever codify it or measure it, like some kind of tractor beam.
We could actually do a little research. I'm sure someone studied this. Yeah, charisma.
It's quantum. It's definitely like some kind of quantum.
Yeah.
Quantum charisma. I think we just started a company right now.
That is a really good name.
Yeah,
I love that name.
I can make you attractive.
So, guys, I'm curious, when you think about the next chapter of growth for your respective companies, what does that structure look like? What does the outbound look like? I mean, you've already built the flywheel, so you guys both get a lot of inbound, which is awesome. I don't know, what percentage of your business is inbound? Probably 100% for you.
100.
Yeah.
Don't do
100.
Yeah. And that's the reality is I trust like my network to feed me good quality businesses. And that's my filter. Like I only take like one client a month, maybe. Like I'm very selective about the startups I work with because I'm fronting hundreds of thousands of dollars for them in legal costs to get them to their Series A. So I gotta believe in the team, believe that they can execute on their vision. And it's one of those things where like it's that gut feeling. And I like some of my first clients where like I almost started writing them off a little bit ago. And the reality is a lot of them have just blown up. Like they've all like we were actually talking about one of them just notarized. Like, shout out to those guys.
These guys are awesome. In fact, I want to dial into them in just a quick second. We do have Nikki Estes calling in live. Where does this podcast find you, Nikki? And thanks for calling in.
I'm so excited to be here. I was actually looking for your page on YouTube to be able to listen in live. Could you tell me what that link is?
Sure. I swear this isn't a plant. If you go to Silicon Zombies on YouTube or on LinkedIn, we can. There's a live stream there. Or if you're listening in via radio, your station is currently dialed to 92.9 FM. But Nikki, tell us a little bit about you. I mean, you run Market Me More. You're in the fractional space. You empower people in the fractional space because of your LinkedIn top voice and the community you've built. So tell us a little bit more.
Well, what I get most excited about is because we had a business, a payments company, and we work with founders to be able to get payment processing, right? And so my zone of genius was in marketing. I love to be able to elevate their brand, to amplify their voice. And I think what probably helps with the whole LinkedIn top voice, because, as you know, people are like, how did you get it? It's probably because I just kept finding people and I would give them a spotlight on my page. And that collaboration thing that I like to do, I think that heart is probably what helped. Well, so when we sold the company, the next part was, well, heck, I really enjoyed marketing and I really enjoyed lifting people up. How can I do that in maybe in a bigger way? And so that's where Market Me More came along. And my friends say Market Me More. MMM is it's good in your mouth.
.com.
Right.
Beautiful.
So that's what we're doing. So then the next phase is like, how can I be able to help people that are out there? They're needing an investment. What can they do to be able to amplify their go-to-market strategy? Who can I connect them with? So that's the phase that I'm in right now. That's why we're doing the scaling my impact, is because I want to put them on stage and I want to give them those opportunities.
I love that you mentioned scaling your impact, because when you've already been successful and you want to give back and you want to leave a mark of positivity, because that positivity can inspire others who will and have great a great impact in return. Do you have a question, Nikki, for these guys around the future of work by chance?
I do. So when I'm talking to these founders, right, and they're putting together this plan of getting the right A player on their team. And sometimes, it's a friend or a family member. What kind of things, so that, they don't have a lot of money to be able to invest in getting that, $100,000 tech guy or, whatever. Could you guys tell me some easy ways that they could be able to upskill their team, some resources that I could send them to so that they could be able to internally grow and upskill?
Ooh, that's a good one. Which one of you fellas want to take that?
I don't understand the question. What is?
I think it's around upscaling. Nikki, I'll let you ask that again.
Sure. So founders want to be able to grow their team and have A players. And maybe the people that they have aren't quite A players. They don't really know what they need to do in technology or in marketing, but they can't afford to go and hire like a CMO
I do
or a
have an answer.
CTO.
Yeah,
right?
where's a good place to start?
So that's typically what I do. Is I help the director of marketing do their job better. Like, essentially, I share my expertise with them.
What are
That's the whole point of fractional.
Exactly.
You can't afford a star player full time. That's why you bring on a fractional star player to be able to pitch hit for you every once in a while and make sure you get that star quality.
What are maybe some concrete? Yeah. Go
Well,
ahead.
I should say though that this fellow named John, who works at M-Train, which is the client I've had over the past year, he's great. He's awesome. But there's certain things he doesn't know that, and also I'm very honest with the CEO, Janine. The company's called M-Train, and at the beginning of last year, they were afraid to spend money on AdWords, and I convinced them, do it. And now they have all this inbound traffic and leads and generating a lot of revenue for them. But it took someone more senior saying, no, that's how you do it. And then John executed the whole thing.
I see. So maybe it's Does that kind of answer your question, Nikki? Maybe it sounds like letting folks know what tools are out there and how to sift through the noise, and then so you pick the right one, and also make sure that you're executing correctly with those tools.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when they look for those tools, and then, this is fun that it's a plug for you guys, right? To be able to get your mentorship. But if there were some tools that you could send them to that they could learn that would make some immediate impact. So maybe in 3 to 6 months, they've had some revenue come in and then they could hire you. What would you give them in that in-between space there?
I think you're trying to look for a magic bullet and there isn't one. I didn't become a fractional GC overnight. I didn't figure out all of the legal things overnight. It's years and years of seeing people screw up and figuring out solutions to those that makes me able to be when someone asks me a question, how do I solve this problem? How do I do X? I have an answer right off the cuff because I've already dealt with that before. I've dealt with these situations. It's experience.
Well, just to push back a little bit, because it's such a quickly changing space, I'm sure self-education is an important element. So how are you teaching yourself around the changing landscape?
Oh, yeah, good point.
I'm constantly studying new technologies that are coming out constantly. Every week I'm reviewing new tools I'm hearing about.
Are you guys familiar with Hugging Face? Yeah, Hugging Face is kind of I guess it's more of for developers, but from my perspective, developer is turning into creator because a lot of the technical requirements are again kind of being, I don't want to say collapsing, but because there's different tools that can execute.
Because coders can rely on AI to actually write code.
Including Sonnet, which just came out, I think, yesterday from Claude. Or no, Claude's the model, Anthropic is the company, and they just scored the highest benchmark for code creation, which is kind of crazy. It's changing the landscape. Cool, Nikki, thank you for the wonderful question. And for the comments, and that's NIKKIESTES, who, if you're looking on LinkedIn, Nikki's a top voice and throws all sorts of amazing events all over the world. In fact, where does this find you right now, Nikki?
I'm in Dallas, Texas today.
Okay.
I was in Louisville, Kentucky yesterday, Phoenix, Arizona last week.
Oh my. I thought when you sell a company, you're supposed to go on cruise control and sip Mai Tais on the beach.
No, I have so much more to be able to explore. I mean, like these guys are saying, you have to keep growing, and so I'm looking for those that want to do it with me. So if you guys you go off, if you want to send out some blogs or some publications that you would recommend from people like me, we've had some experience. That we can continue to grow, I would love to have those resources. Would I find that on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, Nikki, I publish a newsletter twice a week with, I find marketing, honestly, to be a very mechanical, there's a creative aspect to it, but it's also very mechanical, right? You have to microblog, you have to set up AdWords, you have to ABC test things, you have to send out emails, all of these functions. And so I write about all of those things every week in a newsletter that I publish on LinkedIn. So
is there also macro blogging?
There's also macro blogging. Yeah, if you want to get found with SEO.
Oh, okay.
You got to write long form. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Nikki, thanks so much, and we'll be sure to include your contact information in the show notes. Thank you for calling into Zombie Radio.
All right, y'all have a good night. Bye.
Cool.
How do you know Nikki?
Nikki, I met through the Top Voice community. So each year, LinkedIn chooses 300 people. Somehow I managed to get on this list. And what I think it was? So quick story. When I was living in Medellin during the pandemic, we ended up starting a Clubhouse. In fact, Matt, you were one of our first guests on Zombies when we started on Clubhouse, and then we switched on over to LinkedIn Live, which was their competitive product, and now we do it with LinkedIn Audio, which turned into LinkedIn Live. But yeah, so we were creating a lot of content using these new tools on LinkedIn, which has over 1 billion monthly active users. So that's how I met Nikki, and she ended up becoming a dear friend. and a sponsor for the longevity summit that we hosted last year. Next one's October 10th.
There's a case study in marketing right there. Just doing stuff, getting on. If someone's out there listening to this and they want to market themselves, they can create a little radio show or LinkedIn live show.
I think it's also comes down to consistency.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
that's one of the things that Nick has done fantastic since I've known him, is the consistency of being able to produce good content repeatedly. And
it helps to have really cool, fascinating, handsome fellows like yourself to hop on, you know.
You must be speaking about.
I was talking to both you fellas here. And, you know, but
I was about to say, your wife doesn't sound like a slob, so obviously you're pulling something.
She's picky. She's very picky.
I hope so. She's a smart woman.
You know, I love the fact that Nikki brought up because it is kind of like channel management to some degree. You know, what also kind of occurred to me is like, Matt, our respective businesses are actually kind of polar opposites. I mean, they both have a foundation of integrity and community, but you kind of slide under the radar. And for us, we're more like the more the merrier. Like if you want to tune in to live events, in fact, we'll have close to 250 people on March 6th at the Park James Hotel. In fact, that's going to be a super fun,
by the way.
Yeah,
love that place.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Shout out to Human.
Yeah, Human, who's on the radio for 20 years and kind of has been teaching me a lot of the tricks of the trade. And let me tell you a quick funny story about Human. Sandra and I went to a Super Bowl party, and it was pretty cool. It was in the backyard of a beautiful home in San Mateo, and my buddy Robert Escobar's house. Well, we brought Human halfway through. He showed up, and the women went crazy. I mean, all these housewives like, "Oh my God, that's Human Khalili," and of course, he was on 97.3 Alice.
There's somebody with star quality.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's impossible to explain why, but that guy's got it.
He's zesty. He's very zesty. In fact, we had a show with Human where this fellow Jim Dickey, who's also in the longevity space, was up on the stage. And Human, sometimes we play good cop, bad cop. Human looks at him in front of 150 people in the room, and he goes, "What do you do, Jim Dickey?" And it was just like, it was like a saucy delivery. And it gave Jim a great opportunity to share how Human Longevity are doing tests and using technology to do early detection, which is pretty important thing. So, oh my God, we're almost at the top of the hour. We got about 12 minutes left. So when you guys think of fractional work, it's changed in the last couple of years. It's changing now. What's it going to look like in the future? It feels like maybe, Matt, to your point, the picks and shovels, we're taking mud off the racetrack. Like, it's becoming easier to be your own boss. This is more attractive, do you think? The market will grow?
Well, I think it's how you look at it. And I hope companies start realizing that by seeing more companies and working at more companies, you're able to take those experiences and cross-pollinate. Like, that is, at least for my business, being able to work with 40 plus businesses. I see problems at one company and I solve those problems in my templates and my documents, and I push that out to all of my other clients, and they benefit from someone else's problem and vice versa.
So how much of the value that you're providing to your clients is legal oriented versus just best practices, operations, process improvement?
It's all, to me, that's all the same thing. Like, legal is process and systems to make sure you don't do silly stuff.
Like end up in an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah. Marketing's the same way. It's like, don't spend money, like uncheck the expand audience for every client, and test ads for every client. It's all process.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
And the more, at least I would hope that the more that you experience-wise, you've done a product, you've done these things, you learn these little things, and those things help the next client and the next thing. And I think that businesses will start realizing that fractional work actually helps them improve every aspect of their business, because if people are working at multiple companies, they're seeing different stuff over there and how that might help them. And so I think the trick is going to be people making sure they're not working for competitors, but working for similar styles of businesses that can benefit from that cross-pollination.
I agree with that.
Have either one of you guys lost out on a deal because they found out you're already serving a competitive company?
Not yet, but all of my companies do unique things.
Okay.
People I work with. Yeah.
I think that, like, I've not run into that. It's getting a little bit more crazy with the AI space. Like, there is some overlap, or they're starting to get more overlap in there as they try and handle like the big picture stuff. But I really like, at least for me, I like the more, like you were talking about the AI, like the visualization for medical products. That's so niche. Like
So
the chances
niche.
of you running into another company like
No.
that are slim to none.
They actually have no competition. Comp science doesn't either. The workplace safety plus workers'
Exactly.
compensation insurance.
So that's the kind of stuff that I like. Like,
Yeah.
right, like shout out to one of my clients, MedWatch. They are a medical device company that is a non-invasive glucose monitoring device. Like, I don't think I'm going to get another one of those clients coming through my door any day.
I can think of 10 of them right now.
Oh yeah, but it's one of those things. Like, I might get another med tech company that's got a device component, and I might take a lot of the stuff that I've learned with MedWatch and apply that to that client.
Exactly. Because you have industry knowledge. And I'm sure that I'm talking to another, I just sent a proposal to an insurtech company, and I've worked for insurtech companies. So it's very similar playbook.
Yeah, but it's that cross-pollination that I think is going to lead to a huge revolution in the productivity and the benefits that these companies are going to have in being able to create better processes, better stuff, better everything across the board.
I think there's not a lot of people who are really good at what they do in the world.
How are you defining good?
Okay, so I was about to say.
Okay.
Good segue. So there's a book from the 70s called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yep.
And that fellow wrote a long piece of text about the idea of quality with a capital Q. And it's a can you teach someone what quality is? Can you teach someone what virtue is? You kind of can't do it. But there's some people that know what quality work is, and they do quality work. When I worked in advertising, like that was if you didn't know how to do quality work in an ad agency, you did not have a job, because you can tell. It's like, do the clients react well to your headlines or not? And so people who are trained and have an eye for quality design, quality legal strategy.
I disagree, at least for me.
You disagree? How?
So for what you're talking about, a lot of people can critique that and understand it. Whereas legal, very few people actually like when I put if I put two contracts in front of you, most people couldn't probably tell the difference between those two.
Oh, we're saying the same thing, but you can.
I can't.
Because you're a quality individual. And so that's why you're succeeding.
Yeah. But there's plenty of attorneys that I know that or at least I've gone up against in other companies. I literally want to bash my head against the wall.
Why did they choose them? Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that you guys are coming at this, you're essentially arriving at the same idea, but from different standpoints. And what makes for, so two questions. What makes for really good copy? I'm guessing it helps that you're an empath and you're kind of able to tap into the psychological.
Well, I have this superpower, right, for writing headlines. Like I got my job in Japan with one headline.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the best ones?
Oh, I could tell that story. It's distracting me from the main point, though.
But it's so good
because in digital advertising, you can actually tell what headline works.
Okay.
Because you can ABC, and sometimes it's 5x the worst headline. So you have to be open to these ideas. You also need to be able to generate the headlines to test. And that will save you tons of money as a company by having a good headline in your ad, a headline on a landing page for high conversion rates. Saves you tons of money.
And that's been like, I love that, like certain industries like yours, you can get instant feedback on stuff.
Yeah.
and you can quickly tell if something's working or not.
Mm.
Whereas in legal, you only know if you really like messed up a contract, like potentially years down the line when something really goes wrong and that contract does not hold up.
But I thought it was indemnified.
And that's the problem, is a lot of people think, like with contracts, oh, I have a contract, I paid a lawyer a lot of money, it must be good.
Mm.
And because there's no results.
Yeah.
Whereas marketing, there's instant results.
Yeah.
And that's like,
If you do it right.
yeah.
Often people don't have the discipline to do it right. You know, they'll buy a sponsorship with an influencer to send something out for $5,000, but they don't test the thing that's going to be sent out before they do the send. And so you could get much better results from that $5,000 spend or that $50,000 spend.
Yeah, you might blame the influencer because it wasn't the right thing.
Right.
The reality is you didn't figure out the message that influencer should be saying to that audience.
So we always want to have concrete, actionable advice on this show as we demystify emerging technologies with the best brains. So maybe what are some good ways to test that, like a bit.ly link so you could track the channel? Unpack that for us, Jeff.
I mean, a simple thing to do is you come up with 5 ads that look exactly the same except for the copy. And then they go to one landing page and you see which first of all, you're going to see which one has the highest click-through rate.
Yeah.
And then you'll see which one has the highest conversion rate. You can track all of that.
Yeah. And I guess now you can kind of use biometrics to see where people's eyes are looking. And if it's like they look at the blue one longer than look at the green one, or some kind of...
Often that's used in consumer advertising or website, human factors,
Sure.
like testing a website. I don't do much of that,
Yeah.
quite honestly, but
Yeah.
But you could, yeah.
I think the best takeaway that I've ever had is being able to have an intelligent conversation with your individual.
Yeah.
How well do they actually listen to your how well do they listen to your problems, and how well can they come up with a solution for that thing, or tell you a process of how they want to deal with it? And does that make sense?
The crazy thing is that's when they're telling you how to sell them.
Right.
So
Like,
if you
he just explained that whole thing. The reality is most people don't know how to actually execute on that.
Yeah, they don't.
And that's where, like, I tell people all the time, like, here's what you need to do. And I'm not afraid of telling people an answer, because the reality is if they want to take that and go do it themselves, fantastic, but they're going to execute poorly.
People say that in the art world as well. People will go to a gallery and say, oh, I could paint that Rothko.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are you going to go and like get the oil paint, which is hard to use, or even acrylic, and like attempt a Rothko? Are you going to like do that this weekend? So people don't.
And then also on top of that, building up the following to be able to get that shown and do all of those things.
Oh, that's like the business part of art? Well, kudos to my partner, Sylvia Piloto, for exeking on that.
the business of art. We should have Sylvia on.
Oh, she'd be dynamite.
Okay, cool. Guys, we're about to wrap up here. This has been super fun. Jeff, I do want you to share a couple fun headlines. The king of copy, no pressure. What are some fun ones that you've come up with over the years?
Well, that original headline from Japan, when I realized, oh my God, I have a superpower. They gave me this electronic drafting machine that would draw a blueprint. This is in the 80s. I know I'm aging myself. So I didn't have a portfolio with me. I came back on Monday and I said, here's your ad. You have a blueprint of the Colosseum in Rome, and the little blueprint drawing device is on the paper. And here's your headline: Plan Rome in a day.
Ooh.
And they looked at each other, Shiga-san and Jeff Kennedy, and they said, we'll be back in a minute. They came back and they offered me a job on the spot with 5 words.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a mic drop.
Yeah. Like, I'm sitting here like, it can't be that good.
But
And then I hear it, I'm like,
but
no, that is why he got a job on the spot.
I still do that to this day. I've done that dozens and dozens of times.
Wow.
You should write a book about like.
Wait a second.
Oh, should I?
But I think it should just be a little like
if you call it now.
comic book, like a comic book style, like
About advertising?
yeah.
Well, I'm writing a book as a newsletter on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to turn that into a book. It's called Marketing, Obviously.
Marketing, obviously.
I love
Beautiful.
it.
Well, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Goldsmith and Matthew Lopez. Wonderful to have you both. If you want more of the best brains, go to siliconzombies.com or tune in next Wednesday for more of the best brains on Pirate Cat Radio. That's 92.9 FM in Los Gatos and 101.9 FM in Santa Cruz. And again, if you're feeling extra generous, go to donate.kpcr.org and contribute to local community radio. Shout out to our friend Court to Place. That's Plessis, Plessis, Court to Plessis. Check him out on LinkedIn. Thanks for the shout out, Court. And thanks everybody, and take care of yourselves. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Time after time, I am lost.